Hi everybody, welcome to Shivers. Today we're going to be going back on the nostalgia train and really talking about all of my personal experiences with Vans Warped Tour. So many of you who know who I am know that I am a very big metalcore fan. That has been something that has been tried and true my entire life. And when I was 12, I went to my very first ever Vans Warped Tour, which is used to be a summertime day-long festival for metal music, hard rock music, sometimes even like alt rock and folk rock sprinkled in there, a little bit of EDM, and I'll talk about that in a second. And really just was an entire day from, call it 10 to 9, of music and discovering a collective, discovering a community, discovering new bands, new songs. It was really, truly like the best day of the year for me. And this time of year is when it would always happen. So I went from 2010 till 2020, and each year I went to the Scranton, Pennsylvania Vans Warped Tour. So for anybody who's local to that area, to more of northeastern Pennsylvania, you'll know where I'm talking about, up on Toyota Pavilion. And so every year I would go. And again, it was a day-long festival. There was one year in particular, just kind of picking off random memories of the traffic to Montage Mountain is absolutely horrible, which is also why I bring up that venue. And it's an actual mountain. There's a ski resort on the top. There's used to be a water park. They still open that sometimes, but it's legit. And one year we were stuck at the bottom for so long and we were going to miss the first opener of the set and that we wanted to see. So we walked all the way up the mountain, which is not incredibly uncommon for that venue either, because hence traffic. But that alone is one of like a really great core memory. The second year that I went in 2011, that was the year that it absolutely downpoured. And they called everybody under the actual pavilion, like the main area, and they said, we're going to have everybody stay here until there's no more thunder or no more lightning. And in the back where the lawn would be for a regular outdoor venue show, it just was pouring so bad it turned into like a mudslide basically. And everybody went to the top of the hill, and while we were just killing time waiting for Warped Tour to come back, people are sliding down the hill, having fun, making memories, basically slip and slide in the mud. And that year I ended up blowing out my eardrum because of the thunder and lightning. It ended up like blowing up an amp basically right here, but I can still hear, it's fine. But another, again, very core memory of something that, you know, you're going there and you think it's just a music festival or a day-long music show if you want, and there we are having even more fun. So going back to sort of the very beginning, I was only allowed to go to Warped Tour if I went with my cousins and their dad, and it ended up being such a great bonding experience because we had never done really anything together before that. But the first year I'll never forget was my very first ever mosh pit. I wanted to see The Devil Wears Prada, and I had a Motorola phone at the time, and I paid for assistant to the regional manager to be my ringtone on that phone. So that was my like number one goal of year one of Warped Tour, was to go see The Devil Wears Prada play my ringtone. And I'll never forget it. I was kind of middle back of the crowd, and this mosh pit just opened up, and there I am at 12 years old, have no clue what a mosh pit is, no clue what's kind of going on. And it was just so liberating to say like, hey, all of these people are having a great time and having fun, and nobody's actually getting hurt, nobody's trying to hurt each other. Everyone's here to just like express themselves. And that's really when it kind of hit me of this idea of the collective, because it doesn't matter what anybody in that crowd's experience was going to the show or their reason behind buying a ticket. Everybody's here having the same experience at the same time. That's the collective. You know, that's what I talk about all the time, is even in a movie theater, you know, it doesn't matter what brought all of these people to this room right here, right now, but all of these people in this room are the only people who can say that they've had this experience. I think that's pretty cool. I think that's very powerful in terms of community. But when I just continued going year after year to Warped Tour, I just loved it. It was really, again, like I said before, one of the best days, if not the best day of the year for me. And hearing that they ended it and then only doing it in Washington, D.C., Orlando, and California, it's a little bit of a bummer. You know, the biggest selling point was that it's this concert that you get to see everybody all day long for $50. Now it's $250 for a weekend, or even still just a day. I have no idea. But, you know, it takes away some of the magic of it, in my opinion, as well. But I can't tell you how many bands I have found and appreciated from going to Warped Tour. I mentioned The Devil Wears Prada for year one. The other thing about Warped Tour that was so amazing was that each artist would usually have like a signing time. So you could just stand outside of their merch booth and wait for them to come back for their signing time and just get a signing. And it wasn't like these conventions where you have to pay money. I mean, maybe some of them, but I've never paid money for an autograph at Warped Tour. And you would just get into such genuine conversations with some of these people. I'll never forget a conversation I had with Watsky, and I still have all of the things that I got signed from Warped Tour in my closet. So that's all there. The treasure trove is there. But Watsky is more of like a rapper. It's not hard rock. It's not metalcore. It's nothing. But being able to like meet him and talk more about poetry and how he got started and how poetry for him was adjacent to rap, which was adjacent to comedy, which was all about kind of waking people up and bringing people together. It all boils down to the same message. And so also, again, you know, just he's here to perform. He's not here to even have a conversation with me, yet he is. So it goes to show most of the bands that are sort of in that community are really great. Of course, you have your one-offs, but still. So I met Watsky. I met the Black Veil Brides a couple of times. They're very, very cool. To me, the Black Veil Brides have always been very like celebrity aura. I have seen them a couple of times, and I think in a more modern society, they would be like my Super Bowl halftime. You know, I don't love them that much, but I just think they're so polished, so poised, very professional, they know what they're doing. They're very good, very talented. Motionless in White, my favorite band, absolutely. Hometown favorite band as well. They're also from Scranton, Pennsylvania, and always very genuine and kind whenever I have met them or have seen them live. I would say another sort of standout show in particular was Ice Nine Kills. And so they didn't start really coming around to the Scranton Warped Tour until like the last 2 years. But that's really when all of their more like horror movie songs started coming out. Before that, they were doing songs about horror books. And so having them be able to have that stage presence of wearing Freddy Krueger and wearing a different type of outfit for like Chucky, it was fun. You know, it ended up turning it into like, this is truly Halloween in the summertime, which I think is a big reason why they're super successful now. And they deserve all the flowers that they should get. They are showmans. And at Warped Tour, it's very rare to find some of those showmans. You know, it's a quick show, it's a quick turnaround. And so you have to just sort of like get your set and get on, which is why I think it's that much more important to be memorable. So for all of these bands, like they have been truly memorable, and none as much as We the Kings. You know, We the Kings does Check Yes Juliet, Secret Valentine, some staple classic emo medleys. And when they came out on Warped Tour, I didn't really have any intentions of going to watch them or see them, because to me it was just a little too poppy. But they ended up doing like a whole screamo version of Check Yes Juliet, and it was so cool. And just like, also again with the collective, we are the only people who are really ever going to be able to see that. Besides, now you can go on YouTube and probably find it. But it was just a really neat subverting expectations. You know, We the Kings to me really subverted expectations. There was a band called Drugs, Destroy, Rebuild, Until God Shows. And my first or second year of Warped Tour, they were the ones that like really held the crown of just very good, changing my expectations. I had them on my list of people I wanted to go see, and I was not disappointed. So now the singer of Drugs started a band called Chiodos. Now there's rumors that he's going back to Drugs. I'm not real drugs, but I'm not sure what's going to happen with them, but I would definitely give them a watch. Beartooth has come a couple of times, and you know, they're very popular in the media right now because of Caleb Shomo, but that's a story for a different day. Beartooth has always been very like motivational in terms of, you know, be who you want to be and do what you want to do and don't let anybody tell you otherwise. And I think that's the other thing that's very understated about all of this music for Warped Tour as well. All of these bands, you know, I'll rattle off just a couple that were really great. You know, Crown the Empire, Memphis Mayfire, Devil Wears Prada, as I mentioned. You have RDGL, GRN, I think that's all the letters, but they're more of like a, I don't want to say reggae, but like reggae adjacent, reggae punk, we'll call it. But even them, super cool. That's not music I'm listening to on a day-to-day basis, but I go see them in real life and they completely blow the water away. Of course, I'm gonna like continue to listen to them. It's the same thing as a band called Ballyhoo, and it's really cool. I just think it's such a magical experience to be able to go to one location and have so many different experiences, so many different memories, so many different opportunities for you to even just like learn who you are. You know, maybe it's not that deep, but to me, it really was. You know, this is the one day a year where I'm surrounded by people who have tattoos and like the same thing that I like. Finally, other people liking the same thing that I like and being kind. And that is also, again, why I brought up the EDM aspect before, because I've been both a metalcore fan and an EDM fan. And I've always wanted to go to EDM festivals for the exact same reason as why I've wanted to go to Warped Tour. And being able to go to an EDM festival was an absolute nightmare. And I don't want to stereotype everybody, but the entire collective of the metalcore community has never let me down in terms of kindness, in terms of, you know, I feel like if I were to go to a metal show and get hurt, get sick, strangers would help. EDM, I did not get that feeling. I did not have that experience. And so to me, it was just like, oh my God, like what we are told as a society of metal music is bad and you're not allowed to listen to that band and that's satanic and that's evil. When you look at the lyrics and you look at what they're saying and what they're actively creating, communities of people who are empowering each other to finally stand in their power and stand up for who they are, versus EDM that's very more widely acceptable, we'll say much more so than metal music. Those people are sort of praised as being the hippies, and look at them just frolicking in the field. Like it couldn't be more of a juxtaposition. And I think that's another reason why I love the metalcore scene so much, and also the horror scene, and why I tie them together so much, because both of them to me really, really boil down to the simple aspect of subverting expectations. And I think many horror fans can agree some of the most grisly movies that have been made, or gory movies that have been made, are created and made by some of the kindest people. Some of the most amazing people who say like, yeah, I made this movie so that people would wake up and kind of push themselves to learn, to lead, to change, to do whatever. So I think metal music is very much the same thing. I do a whole presentation of history of horror and ties to spirituality, and I sort of bring in this topic by looking at actual lyrics. And you look at Motionless in White as a perfect example of, they have a song called Legacy, and it's just, what will your legacy be? They have a song called Untouchable. You know, nothing that you do is going to stop me. I am untouchable. I am motivated. I'm going. I am capable. I am ambitious, whatever. And again, looking at those lyrics and then listening to people say that it's blasphemy is, in my opinion, kind of crazy. But again, I'll sort of wrap up my random nostalgia tangent from today and giving you a couple of my favorite bands overall. So I mentioned a few of them, you know, Crown the Empire. I think they did a really great job. I like their music. I don't like the direction that they're going currently. Same sort of thing with Beartooth. I have always been a really, really big proponent and fan of Beartooth. I can't say that I necessarily love the direction that they're going in as a band. Another band, you know, I love Motionless in White. I love Ice Nine Kills. I think that both of those bands are really staple core of saying like, here is your subgenre that you love within the movie space, within the storytelling space, and we're going to give that to you on a different type of platform. I think that's a big reason why they are succeeding the way that they are. But again, they get credit. Devil Wears Prada has gotten less better over the years. Asking Alexandria was probably the worst show I've ever seen live. They The singer was drunk. The whole band just like didn't give a shit. And it just ended up becoming kind of a distasteful experience. I would say another sleeper that was really great was We the Kings. Even Steven Jerzak. Steven Jerzak's not making music anymore, but I would say adjacent to Never Shout Never, Steven Jerzak was very fun to meet. Never Shout Never and Christopher Drew hold a very special place in my heart of cringy enjoyment, I guess. But that is the only time in my whole life that I've been starstruck, is when I went to meet Christopher Drew. And he was fine. I mean, it was a very non-memorable experience outside of me just like being nervous to meet somebody, which is an interesting concept of its own. But yeah, I would say outside of that, Chelsea Grin, I've always wanted to see a full show from them, but they were very good live, along with Wage War. Wage War has become one of my favorite bands because of Warped Tour. Drugs as well, the band. I Prevail came the last couple of years to Warped Tour, but they are also, I like the direction that I'm seeing I Prevail going into. And outside of that, I mean, there's just always really great new artists to listen to at Warped Tour. I would say, just in the theme of summer, go back and listen to some 2011, 2010, even 2005 Warped Tour soundtracks, and you're going to find that's some of the just most genuine fun music that's kind of out there, in my opinion. But yeah, so I'll wrap up my nostalgia tangent of the day with all of that. But this time of year has me really like in my feels of the nostalgia and memories, and even the catharsis of Warped Tour, and wanting to relive that and have that experience. And I feel like I can still do that within the horror community. And to me, that's something that's really special, and I hold on to that. So I hope, if nothing else, this gave you a couple new bands to listen to. I would love, love, love nothing more than to hear your music and concert stories. So please share in the comments, like, subscribe, all of that fun stuff. And thank you for listening.